Tonight at midnight, New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York will start restricting travelers from other U.S. states that have 10% positivity rates in their testing. That means travelers or returning residents coming from these 9 states will have to quarantine for 14 days if they want to come to the tri-state area. The initial list of states that'll be affected by this quarantine ban are Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Utah, Texas, Washington State. Those are the states that currently meet the criteria for a mandatory quarantine if you want to come to New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut. Even if you are a resident of New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut, if you have been staying or visiting any of those states, when you come home, you will have to quarantine for 14 days. Now, we'll see how the enforcement of that goes. In New York or New Jersey or Connecticut, it's not clear how it will be enforced, but at least attempts to impose measures like this were probably inevitable, as some states started to handle this and lots of states didn't. It's inevitable that some states that are doing relatively okay are going to band together to try to make policy together if the federal government is just not going to work on this thing, right? Like, we're the United States for a reason. We thought that banding together as 50 states and doing stuff as a country would be a good idea for us, not only in the world, but for us in our individual states. If the federal government is not going to work on this thing that has killed 121,000 Americans in 16 weeks with no signs of stopping, while we are breaking new records all over the country, including nationwide right now, if the federal government is just not going to work on it, then we'll form new, smaller subgroups of United States to try to work on it together, since the federal government is just abandoning ship. So you've got the tri-state area that went through hell and high water and is coming out of it and has bent their curve all the way down. You see those states now banding together and saying, well, we're going to try to protect ourselves from the states where this thing is out of control. Today in Virginia, for example, it looks like that's going to be the first state in the country to issue their own statewide binding workplace safety rules for what companies have to do to keep workers safe from coronavirus in the workplace. It is really weird. It's really odd that an individual state is trying to do this, since this is the sort of thing that the federal government does. The Occupational Safety and Health Association, Safety and Health Administration in the federal government is in charge of doing this. But in the Trump administration, they're just not. They're just not working on it at all. And since the federal government isn't doing anything at all on that score, while lots and lots of people are going back to work in the face of the threat of getting infected at work, well, yeah, states are going to have to start making up these rules themselves, for themselves, because the president has just decided that the federal government won't do it. So in ways large and small, the failure of the federal government to address the coronavirus disaster will start to pull the states apart from one another and to pit the states against each other in some ways. And if we have good leadership in the states, we can all hope and pray that the states will try to work together cooperatively and collectively to advance their mutual interests. But ultimately, what we're going to have happen here is confrontation and conflict and competition, where states feel like they've got to look out for their interests against other states. And the states will dislocate and pull apart like that because of the failure effort. Mike Pence with Republican senators today being like, seems fine to me. Accentuate the positive.